Well, we're gonna go ahead and start. Some other people may be joining us a little bit later, but good evening, everybody, and welcome Woodstock Public Library. We're gonna learn a little bit about prescribed burn associations tonight. My name is Hugh Frisbee, and I'm a landowner here in McHenry County. I've had lived between kind of Woodstock and Harvard, Woodstock address, and I've been managing property for a little over 30 years out there, and I've been doing burns for a number of years. And I'll talk a little bit about later on how I found out about prescribed burn association. But I thought it was a great idea, and I went and talked to Lisa Hatterline from the Land Conservancy. I said, "You guys ought to do something like this." She said, "Well, why don't you?" So I know. So here I am. So I kind of helped pull this together, and would like to go over it. To start off with, I want to just do we'll do some brief introductions. This is the agenda. I'm going to have Steve Byers talk a little bit about why prescribed fire. It's kind of like I told him it was going to be like preaching to the choir, because I think most people here are into fire, but he's got, he likes preaching to the choir. So, and then we've got Caleb Worley, who is with Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever. Sorry. He's going to talk a little bit about what a prescribed burn association is. And included in that, he'll talk about the definition, Illinois law, organization structure, equipment, operation funding, and liability. So hopefully answer all of your questions. And if not, you can shout them out. And talk about how to set up a PBA establishment. I'll talk a little bit about that and where we're going. And then we'll talk about the next steps. So the goal tonight is really to educate people as to what a prescribed burn association is. At the end of the night, we're going to talk about next steps of, is there interest in it in McHenry County? How would we get it set up? How would we get it going? We will be sending out a survey to everybody afterwards, just asking a little bit more information, your level of interest, and where you would like to go from there. This presentation will also be posted out there, and we are actually somewhat live. We're real live right now for
10 viewers.
for some people. Yeah, so we've got audience outside here that's watching. So we will also hopefully have this recorded, and so that you can look back or pass it on to other people that are interested in looking at it. So the process, how it actually got started was, I went to a Wild Things conference, and some of you may be familiar with that. Group of conservation organizations in the Chicagoland area have been doing Wild Things every other year for a while. Well, this year they decided to do one down in Southern Illinois, down in O'Fallon. So my wife and I said, "No, we'll just go down to O'Fallon," and went down there for the weekend and went to the conference. And as we were there, they gave a presentation. It was one of Caleb's associates, talked a little bit about prescribed burns and what they were and how they'd been established within Illinois and Nebraska and Arkansas and different states, and really sounded like a great idea. And I know McHenry County has obviously had, a lot of activity within restorations, fires, everything else. But one of the things I know is that from a personal point of view, I'm a little older now than I was 30 years ago when I started burning. And as I look into the future, I'm hopefully going to keep getting older, because the alternative isn't very good. But as I do that, I thought, I really need to develop more of a network to be able to help. Right now, I can do it with myself, some friends, some high school kids I've got. I do a group and I get it put together, but it could really be helpful for me. And I figured there might be other people that were in a similar situation, or that just weren't sure how to do a burn or other things, and we could get something going. So the barriers to prescribed burns are probably three as I see them. One, it's knowledge, for people who have it, are trying to do some restoration or some other reason, but they've never done a burn, and fire can be scary for somebody that's done it for the first time. And all of a sudden, how do you know it's not going to get away and everything else? So that's the knowledge. It's the equipment, whether it's a backpack, whether it's ATVs, sprayers, that type. And then the third is the manpower. I've got it, but I don't think I can do it by myself. Who else am I going to get to help me? How are they going to help me? So what we're really looking at, and what I really like about PBA, it's really a neighbor to neighbor type of model. It's people within the county getting together to pool resources, and with those resources, hopefully we will be able to uh, achieve a couple goals of increasing the number of acres that are burned in McHenry County, in the future, and also maybe increase the safety and effectiveness of the burns. So that's kind of what the overall goal is going to be. I'd like to just do a quick survey here, just to kind of figure out who the audience is and who's attending this. How many people are landowners who have property that would benefit from a prescribed burn? Ooh, good, because you're the prime audience. Not that other people that are here are important also, and we'll talk a little bit about that later on. How many have over 10 acres of that group? How many have over 10 acres? Well, good number. How many people have responsibility for burning property that they don't own? Okay, good. And how many people would benefit from a
website landfire.gov uses a variety of tools to actually try and calculate the fire return interval. And for this part of the Midwest, it was probably somewhere in the vicinity of 8 to 12 years, everything burned. And some have suggested, Jerry Wilhelm and others, that actually it burned much more frequently than that. For those of you that are really interested and want to dive into this, McLean et al. In a document entitled Patterns of Anthropogenic Fire in the Midwest for the period from 1673 to 1905, they talked about fire, 795 wildfires, and I'm going to read. Maybe I am. Editor. Well, maybe I won't. Here it is. With regard to the extent of the burns that were documented, just one occurrence referenced by McLean et al. A large fire started at 10 a.m. in the prairie near the Spoon River in Stark County, Illinois. The fire burned north, driven by a strong south wind for 100 miles, reaching the Rock River where Rockford now stands, and blackening thousands of hectares of prairie. So these were events that occurred on the landscape. We know that, and some of them were quite dramatic in the extent of the fire and the effects of fire. In this particular paper by McLean et al., they talk also about the effect of fire on vegetation, and then also the absence of fire and how that affected the landscape. We know that fire promotes diversity of plants and animals, and there are a number of ways that happens. Prescribed burns impact the soil, it warms it, releases nutrients in the ash that's released, promoting new plant growth. The growing season is typically extended and supports plants that are adapted for fire. In fact, many plants require heat for those seeds to germinate or to take root, leading typically to diverse, robust, and more resilient plant communities. Now, there's a lot of information out there about the effect of fire on invasive species. We know that hot fire can typically top kill invasive brush, sometimes do a little better than that. And that's probably one of the most frequent uses for controlled burn, is to control invasive species. This particular document by the USDA Forest Service, Chapter 7, talks about the role of fire, particularly with regard to its impact and beneficial impacts on controlling non-native or invasive species. Some things that, preparing for this talk, I was simply quite really taken with. I wasn't aware that fire typically promotes the growth, the height of plants, the flowering rates, and there's some beneficial results from that. Plants become more visible to pollinators. Fire can reduce the effects of fragmentation by aligning bloom times. And I had never thought about that, but in fact, it's been documented that this is the case. And that promotes cross-pollination of some of these particular species. And a study in the University of Minnesota for the pale purple coneflower and many other species found that increased flowering rates and seed production resulted from controlled burn. We know that controlled burns typically provide a spatial and structurally diverse landscape. This is important for a variety of wildlife species. I know years ago when I worked at McGraw Wildlife, we would always go back and touch off that last little spot that didn't burn, but I think most of you now leave that spot, and it's to provide that structural and spatial diversity and also to support refugia for insect species. Controlled burns also actually, although they in the short term release carbon, long term they actually maintain the ecosystem structure, particularly oak woodlands that support long term carbon storage. And also, frequently now we're seeing an extended wildfire season, and it's suggesting now that in the face of climate change and that increasing wildfire season, that it's important to get out there and reduce the amount of fuel through the use of controlled burn. So I'm just going to wrap it up with that. Controlled burns in the Midwest are a low-cost, low-risk tool for maintaining the landscapes of the Midwest and the plants and animals that are associated with them. Fire has been a natural part of the Midwestern landscape for millennia. Indigenous people used fire, controlled fires, for agriculture, hunting, and habitat management. And what we're doing now, many of you that are out there doing controlled burning, is continuing that tradition. So, thank you.
So now I'm going to ask Caleb to talk a little bit about what a prescribed burn association is. But when I was down in O'Fallon at the Wild Things Conference, there was a couple presenters from Pheasants Forever and Quails Forever that really talked a little bit about it, and I was kind of interested in how they were doing it. And then I found out that there was actually a coordinator in the northern part of Illinois that helps new chapters or new associations get set up in various counties. That person is Caleb. And so his role is kind of with Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever is to go around, help set up chapters in different counties in northern Illinois, as well as that's a small portion. He also does a lot of work with helping do burn plans and get permits for burning, and also helping other people who are actually doing burning with various government programs. So he's got a very wide, diverse thing. Today he's going to focus on setting up what it's like to set it up. They've got a wealth of information that they've done from setting up things up in both Nebraska and southern Illinois and a couple in northern Illinois. So if we decide to proceed, we're not starting from scratch. There's a lot of stuff we're going to need to rely on.
Okay. Just a quick show of hands. How many of you guys have heard of Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever? Okay, quite a few of you guys. For those of you who haven't, Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever, we're a non-for-profit agency nationwide. We're here in Illinois as well. And our mission is to conserve pheasants, quail, and other wildlife through habitat improvements, education and outreach, public access, and conservation delivery. Pheasants Forever, Quail Forever, we're kind of unique. We have chapters in a lot of the counties here in Illinois, and those chapters are groups of volunteers, so similar to a PBA, just groups of volunteers that want to improve habitat and support our mission. So here in McHenry County, there's a local McHenry County Pheasants Forever chapter. There's two folks there in the back of the room that have the Pheasants Forever shirts on. I encourage you guys to reach out to them to see what they're doing here in McHenry County. And if you guys have any interest in being involved with them, they're the guys to talk to. We also have staff, Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever. We have over 300 biologists nationwide. We have about 15 here in Illinois. And as far as overall staff, we're pushing around 600 nationwide. Like Hugh mentioned, I am a prescribed fire coordinator with Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever. I cover the northern half of the state. You can see on the eastern side, I go all the way down to Jasper and Crawford County. I live in LaSalle County, so pretty central for my area. And a lot of my involvement has been in that northern third of the state. I started with Pheasants Forever back in 2020 in Ohio, moved to Illinois in 2022, and then just recently, March of last year, transferred into this prescribed fire role. So Hugh mentioned some of the things I do, provide prescribed fire training and workshops. We try to do a lot of educational and outreach events. I assist partners, mainly the DNR, but other partners as well, and prescribed burn associations with implementing prescribed burns. I assist with the formation of prescribed burn associations. And then I also do a lot of prescribed burn planning, so writing prescribed burn plans, mainly for landowners who are enrolled in federal programs, but also for people who aren't enrolled in any type of program. And if at any time you guys have questions, feel free to raise your hand or speak out. No problem with that. So what is a PBA? A PBA is essentially a group of landowners and other proactive citizens that form a partnership to connect resources and to conduct prescribed burns on private property. So association members pool their equipment, manpower, knowledge in order to conduct prescribed burns on other members' properties. So again, a community-led group. Usually there are bylaws and guidelines associated with the PBA, and it'll kind of be up to the board to determine what those look like. We have some suggestions and templates and things like that. So there's no really recreating the wheel, but those guidelines and guide laws kind of mention your membership prices, other fees, what involvement with the PBA looks like, amongst other things. We always recommend that the PBAs go the route of applying as a non-for-profit agency in Illinois, as well as federally, and that just opens up the door for grant opportunities. Typically, a PBA has a board of directors. I'll get in a few more slides, I'll kind of get into what those look like. Your memberships, usually there's different membership levels for the PBA, and then technical advisors. So that would be myself. I mentioned we have about 15 biologists here in Illinois. So going back, we have a biologist here. His name's Michael Millett, and he's based out of Rockford in Winnebago County. But he covers all the, well, he doesn't cover Joe Davies, but all these counties up here, and then goes down into Ogle, DeKalb, Kane, DuPage, and Cook. So there's resources, professional resources for the Prescribed Burn Association or for the members of the Prescribed Burn Association. Hugh mentioned some hurdles for prescribed fire. He mentioned 3. I threw another one on there, training and equipment. Knowledge and experience, those kind of go hand in hand. Maybe, a lot of people know fire is good. They want to implement fire on their property, but they don't have the experience with prescribed fire. They don't know where to start. So going into that, that's where kind of training can kind of help you through some of those processes. With that being said, training for prescribed fire is pretty limited in Illinois. You guys are kind of lucky up here in McHenry County that you do have access to some different agencies for specifically for prescribed fire training. Equipment, I would say that's probably one of the biggest holdups. A lot of people do have knowledge and experience with prescribed fire, but they don't have the hand tools, the fire rig, the drip torches to get it done, which then kind of leads into people power as well. There's a lot of people that were burning with friends 10 years ago, and maybe Now they're older, they aren't doing a lot of burning. So maybe someone has the knowledge, experience, training, and equipment, but they can't find people to come out and help them burn. So the idea behind the PBA is to overcome those hurdles. Hugh mentioned it. You'll hear it a lot when talking about PBAs, but essentially it's a neighbors helping neighbors approach. The PBA is providing that experience, knowledge, manpower, and equipment for the burns. So some examples of PBAs here in Illinois. I kind of look at it as two different avenues and two different types. So down in Southern Illinois is the Southern Illinois Prescribed Burn Association, also known as SIPBA. Also down there is the Great Rivers PBA, also known as GRIPA. Both of those have paid coordinators. They have burn bosses assigned to burns. And because of that, they're able to cover a large service area. You can see SIPBA covering about 11 to 15 counties and GRIPA around 5. What I'm dealing more with are these landowner-led PBAs. So over in this column, usually it's a smaller service area, 1 to 2 counties, 5 to 8 group leaders that kind of share the coordination and lead that PBA. Typically in this approach, the landowner is the burn boss. And just some examples here. So the burn guys, they're further down south in Marion and Jefferson County. On the other side of the state, up in Joe Davies County, we have a group that just got established this spring. They go by the Burn Brigade. And then in my area, LaSalle County, we have a group that just formed this spring as well. And they're called the Illinois Valley Prescribed Burn Association. Outside of that, my counterpart Shell is working with PBAs in her area. So we're seeing the PBA, we're seeing them start to kind of take off, especially over the past 2 years. Okay, so the act of burning is inherently dangerous and comes with a risk. I think we all can agree with that. Because of that, many states have created prescribed fire acts to help protect fire practitioners and landowners from liability while also encouraging fire on the landscape. So here in Illinois, we do have the Illinois Prescribed Fire Act. It's been around for about 20 years now. And I took out kind of the key notes, the key sentences that I think are important from that act. The first one being prescribed fire is a land management tool that benefits the safety of the public, the environment, and the economy of the estate. So the Prescribed Fire Act is stating that prescribed fire is good. We know it's good. What do you need to implement prescribed fire while staying in line with the Prescribed Fire Act? It states that you need written consent of a landowner, a written prescription approved by a certified burn manager, have at least one certified burn manager on site, notify local emergencies, and notify adjoining property owners. With that being said, I mentioned controlled burn manager. The act also mentions that it is a property right of the property owner to implement prescribed fire on their own land if it's naturally occurring vegetation that's being burned. The act states that the property owner or the certified controlled burn manager are liable for any damage or injury caused by the fire or resulting smoke upon proof of negligence. So what does proof of negligence look like? Some examples would be, say your burn plan says you can't burn with a south wind because you have a highway quarter mile to you, and you decide to burn with a south wind anyways. Smoke goes over the highway, you cause an accident. That would be a great example of proof of negligence. Pretty much the burn plans, they have prescription for weather outside of wind. We look at humidity, temperature, moisture, doing anything that the burn plan or doing the opposite of what the burn plan says is going to be showing proof of negligence. So it's pretty easy to avoid being negligent. You just need to follow your burn plan and follow the Prescribed Fire Act. Any burning conducted under this act, it's declared to be a public interest, which is good for us. It does not constitute a public or private nuisance, and I bolded this here, when conducted in compliance with Section 9 of the EPA or the Environmental Protection Act and all other state statutes and rules applicable to prescribed burning. A lot of people don't go through the process of getting an IEPA open burn permit to do their burn. Some people don't want to get a burn plan either. It's very highly recommended to get the permit, as it's mentioned in the Environmental Protection Act, and then also to have a burn plan. It kind of protects your bases. Again, if anything bad did happen and you can show that you are in prescription of your burn plan, you had your permit, you talked to all the emergency agencies and all of that, kind of covering all your bases. Organizational structure. One thing I want to mention, all PBAs kind of function differently. So I'm going to talk about the structure of PBAs, and these are more so suggestions just to kind of give you guys an idea of how these PBAs are functioning. So usually the leadership team consists of 5 to 10 people. Of those 5 to 10 people, you should have a president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer at a minimum. One thing to note, the secretary and treasurer, a lot of times as a PBA is first starting out, that role is kind of filled by the same person. Usually there's not a whole lot of expenses going on or things going on, so that's able to be handled by the same person. Also, something to note, you can be involved with a PBA even if you don't want to actually do any burning. So some of these roles might be good for you if you're not a fire bug and don't want to get out on the fire line. So again, that 5 to 10 people, you have those 3 to 5 board members that serve as committee leaders and assist with the planning and coordination of the PBA on the ground. PBAs have other roles. Sometimes there's equipment managers. A lot of times they have their own group of people who are going out and checking sites after the fire breaks have been installed, ensuring that it's good to go before you send a crew out there. Some groups have social media managers, people that are promoting events via social media. So there's all different types of roles depending on the PBA and how you guys want to function. So equipment, again, it's probably the biggest holdup for PBAs getting started. That's why we recommend going the route of applying as a non-for-profit, just so that you have access for grants to help assist with some of that equipment cost. As you guys are starting out, most of the time it's just going to be pulling everyone's equipment together. So we recommend having an equipment inventory list where people list the equipment they have for burns on their property and what equipment they might be okay with sharing on other people's burns. Ideally, the end goal is getting a burn trailer. So this is a brand, the trailer's not new, but it's a brand new wrap. This is from our Texas Quail Forever team. Just got this wrapped in March of this year. Outside of the burn trailer, some other agencies or organizations might have equipment that they're okay with sharing or gifting. So I mentioned soil water conservation districts. Sometimes Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever chapters have equipment, or other conservation agencies. Basic PBA structure and operations. Again, all the PBAs kind of function differently. Typically, PBA dues are anywhere from $100 to $200 per year, and that is for people who are receiving a service from the PBA. So they're wanting to get their property burned. Most PBAs also have a day of mobilization fee after the burn is complete, and that just helps out with fuel costs and just maintenance of equipment and things like that. Usually your group is going to have 5 to 10 dedicated leaders, but then outside of that, ideally 15 to 60 members. These are people that are helping out on burns or getting their property burned. 60, it's kind of a random number. I don't think you can have too many members, but you might have, it might be kind of like a rotating door where this guy is a member this year, and then he gets his property burned, and then he doesn't come back for another 2 or 3 years until it's time to get his property burned again.
We wouldn't encourage that.
Yeah. recommended once you guys do have a trailer and start having equipment, definitely recommended to have an equipment manager who's kind of responsible for moving that trailer around, making sure everything's staying maintained in the trailer. And ideally, it's centrally located in your coverage area or county. Hold annual meetings to discuss kind of how your past year went and how your upcoming year is going to go and what your future or what your goals are for that upcoming year. Outside of your annual meetings, especially as you're first starting out, you're going to have a lot of board member meetings or maybe that leadership meeting, the 5 to 10 people that are kind of determining what your guidelines and bylaws are going to be and making some of those bigger decisions. The PBAs, pretty much all of them have this incentive-based structure to encourage members to actively participate on prescribed or PBA burns. I'll get into that in a little bit, but it's most of the time, again, it's a neighbors helping neighbor approach. If you want your property burned, you have to help the PBA out on a burn before yours gets added to the list.
Or something besides a burn.
Right. Newsletters are always great. There aren't too many groups that do that. The Joe Davies group, they're pretty new and they're good about sending out monthly newsletters to all their constituents. I definitely recommend going the route of email for that versus snail mail, just with the price of stamps. But these newsletters are highlighting burns, member participation, and planned burn days. Social media is also a good way to share pictures and events. A lot of the PBAs are going the route of setting up like a Facebook page so that they can share those. Burn day, mobilization, emails. Essentially, you guys will have to decide on some type of communication technique. There's different apps out there. A lot of people are using WhatsApp or Team Reach. We definitely don't recommend going the route of just a normal group text just because of the incompatibility between iPhone and Android. Sometimes you miss some people. A good way to do is just do a combination of things so you're kind of reaching everyone. If you have a social media page, making a post about a burn the next day, sending out emails, if you're using WhatsApp or Team Reach, messaging that way as well. PBAs apply for grants, equipment grants, so it's good to be aware of what grants are available, which I definitely try to let the PBAs know when certain grants are opening or closing. Then the PBA is going to be creating, determining, and sharing training opportunities. The PBA can put on their own burn training opportunities, but also sharing opportunities that arise from other agencies. I know the Land Conservancy has a burn training. The Chicago Wilderness Training out of the Arboretum is another good prescribed burn training. But connecting your members with those training opportunities is pretty good. Landowner responsibilities when working with the PBA. Again, just kind of recommendations and what other PBAs are doing. You have to have an active PBA membership. Assist with 2 burns before crew assists on your burn. And pretty much all the PBAs are doing things outside of just burning. So you could assist with the site prep for another burn, another member's burn, or you could attend a workshop or education outreach event that the PBA is putting on, attend a burn training, participate on the board. So again, it's kind of going to be up to the PBA and board members to decide what those requirements are. The PBAs usually leave it up to the landowner to obtain the burn plan and permits. But again, there's technical resources out there, professionals that can assist with that. Different templates. One thing to note, if landowners are enrolled in a federal program like CRP or EQIP, they're required to have a specific type of burn plan. That's the NRCS template. The good thing about that program or those programs is that they're already on someone's list that they need a burn plan. So usually I'm notified if I need to do a burn plan for someone like that. but there's other burn plan templates out there that are being utilized as well. It's the landowner's responsibility to notify neighbors, fire department, sheriff, and dispatch before the burn. They're responsible for installing the fire breaks. And then I mentioned before, but it's always important for someone with the PBA to verify that those fire breaks are good to go. And those could be clover breaks, leaf blown, disked, roads, creeks, and mowed wet line. Just a few examples. Typically, we also recommend that the landowner provides drinking water, gas and diesel, or drip torch fuel. And if available, if they have an ATV and sprayer unit, that's great. Some things the PBAs are starting to do now with their burn trailers, as opposed to getting an actual burn rig and sticking it in there, they're just getting these slide-in sprayer units so that if a landowner has an ATV, but they don't have a sprayer, they can just slide that sprayer unit into their ATV and use that. My role and the role of our Farm Bill biologist. So we provide training opportunities, field days, and demonstrations. Like I mentioned, we try to do a lot of education and outreach type events, assist with burn plans and permits. We can do site monitoring to meet with that landowner before the burn, just to be a technical resource for them, suggest kind of the best time to burn based off of their goals and their habitat. Also do post-burn checks as well, see if those goals were met after that burn was completed. Notify you guys about grant opportunities, and then assist with getting PBAs up and off the ground, which can include writing those burn plans, again, conducting those site visits, being that technical resource for both the landowner and the PBA, as well as providing cost estimates for equipment for burn trailers. Funding. So again, grants are going to be kind of a huge way to get equipment. The burn trailers are not cheap, and the equipment that's inside of the trailers are not cheap. So two pretty common grants that are available out there that you can buy burn equipment with. The NWTF Superfund grant that has an August 1st deadline. I have it cut out. These were projects that were received in 2025. You can see there so support for SIPA, the Southern Illinois Prescribed Burn Association. They got 10,000, and then GRIPA got 6,000. So NWTF, they are supporting prescribed burn associations. The IDNR Special Wildlife Funds grant, that's a larger pool of money. It's going to be a little bit more competitive. And it requires a little bit more of a match. But with that being said, you can get a decent amount of equipment with that grant since there is a higher cap there. Both of those are August 1st deadline. So if the group does form and there's any interest there, I'm happy to assist with grant application.
Caleb, what is NWTF?
That's the National Wild Turkey Federation. Funding can come from your memberships and fees. Probably not going to be a huge income source, but it's definitely there to help support the PBA and provide that match for grants. So that's the thing with the grants. A lot of them do require a match. So you have to have some kind of skin in the game there. And the more match you have, usually the better your application looks and the higher chance you have of getting chosen. Fundraising events, whether that's an annual banquet or other type of fundraising events. I don't know of any PBAs here in Illinois that are doing that, but it's definitely a suggestion there. Donations, whether that's equipment or cash. Again, there's other conservation agencies out there that would be happy to support agencies who are doing prescribed burn. Local fire departments and rural fire departments, they do have access to specific grants related to wildland firefighting equipment. Sometimes they're willing to come out and provide that equipment on burns, or if it's hand tools and things like that that are outdated, sometimes they're okay with gifting some of that stuff. liability. So liability always comes up, right? I mentioned prescribed fire is inherently dangerous and there's a risk associated with it. So everyone asks, well, if something goes wrong, who's liable for it? Who's going to get in trouble? So most PBAs in Illinois function under the guidelines that the landowner is responsible and liable for the controlled burn. Typically, the landowner is the one that starts the test fire and then making that call whether we should proceed with the burn or put that test fire out. Some PBAs in Illinois carry insurance and provide a certified Illinois prescribed burn manager that leads the burn. In that case, the PBA usually assumes liability. In 2 slides, I'll talk a little bit about insurance and what that looks like as far as costs. In both those scenarios, whether the PBA has insurance or not, it's definitely recommended to have some type of waiver in place, and that's both for the landowner who's getting their property burned and then for the participants who are helping out on the burn. Again, Illinois Prescribed Fire Act, in the 20 years that it's been around, I always note this, it's never been tried in court. So it really goes back to negligence. I'm not saying that fires don't get out and people don't get in trouble for them, but a lot of times when that's happening, those people are not following a prescription. They don't have a burn plan. They don't have a permit. They're not contacting those emergency services or anything like that.
Can you clarify, a landowner does not need to have a certified Illinois prescribed burn manager present? Or
Correct.
does?
They do not.
Okay.
Yep. So the act allows landowners to burn their own property or landowners to assign someone to burn their property. If I went out and burned someone's property for hire, I would have to be a certified burn manager. Burn planning and permits. So this document here on the right, that's just the first page of the NRCS burn plan. Document there on the left is a copy of the IEPA open burn permit. So that's what they'll send you after they send in the application. The IEPA has really stepped up their game with this permitting process. When I first came to Illinois in 2022, it was, we would say, a 30 to 60 day turnaround after submitting your application. You have to mail them in, and then they would mail them back. If there was anything wrong with your application, they would let you know via mail that there was something wrong with it. You make those corrections, send it back to Springfield. Now we can just do everything via email. It's like a 2 to 3 week turnaround now. So it's a lot quicker. Again, myself, the Farm Bill biologist, we're happy to do these applications for the landowners and assist them. Same with the burn plans. Eventually, we'd like the PBAs to kind of have someone who's handling permits and burn plans, getting that experience. But we're always a resource for you guys. Okay, insurance. So it's very difficult to find insurance companies that cover prescribed fire. And if you can find one, it's usually not very cheap. So Southern Illinois Prescribed Burn Association, they do carry fire insurance, and they also have a few paid staff that are covered. And they're really the only ones that are covered under their insurance policy. And it ranges from $3,000 to $5,000 per person annually. The Joe Davies County PBA, so this is a landowner-led PBA. They carry fire insurance that covers liability for a burn, and they found a broker that gave them the deal of $6,000 for 18 months of coverage. Other quotes they got in the Naperville area were $9,500 for 12 months of coverage. If you don't have a lot of money coming in, it's going to be really hard to pay for insurance. So again, most of the PBAs are functioning under the landowner is the one being liable. They're the ones kind of leading that burn or being responsible for the burn. Regardless of the insurance or not, all these PBAs have waivers in place, both for the landowner and the participants.
Question.
Yep.
What about ordinary homeowners liability coverage, liability insurance?
Yep. And I forgot to mention that. So a a lot of the PBAs that don't carry insurance require that the landowner has insurance on their property, and that specifies something in there about smoke damage or burning or fire. Good question. Anything else for me before I toss it back to Hugh?
So for the insurance, right, for your homeowners, you're gonna wanna get a pollution clause to cover that smoke side fire. That's what you're gonna, that's the language that you're gonna,
Pollution cost?
yeah, pollution clause.
Okay.
That's what's gonna cover you for that smoke going across the road and whatever it's called.
All right. Thank you. So that was a good overview, I think, of what a PBA is and how it can operate. So what I want to talk a little bit about is one particular thing of what's required to actually get it established. I mean, from a concept point of view or an interest point of view, what do we need to do to kind of get it off the ground? As Caleb mentioned, part of it is PBAs are set up as not-for-profits, 501c3. So to set that up, do an application, you get signed up with the state. There's going to be annual returns depending on size, revenue, some other things, audits, accounting, various things. So there's can be some paperwork and other stuff involved with that. Another method, and one that I've explored with TLC, is the Land Conservancy, is being a fiscal agent. And so by being a fiscal agent, you're really kind of a subset underneath them. And we would have an agreement, the PBA would have an agreement with TLC, and we would be like a footnote in their operations and how they work and in the financials and everything else. And we would not have to do anything separate. We would fall under them as far as 501c3. There's a couple other, they have a couple other fiscal agent relationships that they have. One is blank on the name, the Wildflower Propagation and WDPC. Thank you. They're set up as one. I think they also did something with the Food Shed Foundation. They set up, so they've done several of these and would be willing. And Lisa said this one she's excited about because it really aligns very much with what TLC is doing. They're doing a lot of burns right now and helping out a lot of their members who have conservation easements in place and stuff, and they've got a lot of burn equipment. Daniel is here from TLC and does a lot of that. So this would fit in very well with kind of what they're doing, and we have to figure out how it all works, but we think there's lots of opportunities there. So the next step, assuming that the people who are involved in getting this all set up think that makes sense, is actually having an agreement with TLC. They actually do the accounting for you, they do all that type of stuff, and usually there's some sort of fee arrangements and check with other things, but much more beneficial, less time consuming, easier to get going right away, when you get that set up. Then the next thing that would need to be set up would be operating agreements. As Caleb mentioned, this would deal with things like, members. What are the fees going to be? How much are you charging? How many volunteer opportunities people need to work on before, you burn on their property? And once again, it doesn't necessarily need to be a burn. There's going to be other types of things that could be involved in doing grant writing, or somebody could be involved, as Caleb mentioned, trying to learn how to do the Illinois EPA permits and wanting to kind of take that on. So there's a lot of opportunity, but we need to have something put together as operating agreements. And then also need somebody to kind of drive all this. I would say the other thing that is probably of a sense of urgency that is needed right away is it would really be nice to be able to get a couple grants. And as Caleb mentioned, there's a couple with a August 1st deadline, which is real soon. But the fact that we have a TLC as a fiscal agent, we don't have to worry about being a 501c3 set up in advance of that. So we have to do that. That's kind of the approach of what needs to be done to establish it. So then it becomes, what are the next steps? What are we going to do here to kind of go forward and get this moving. And the first thing, I just want to do a quick polling. You know, I did a polling at the beginning, how many were landowners or stuff. I realize there's still some key pieces, you know, costs. We know it's kind of somewhere, most of them end up being $100 to $200, you know, per member, and about $150 for a fee when your property is burned. But based on what you've heard, and this is not a commitment, but just a quick show of hands, how many people think they would be interested in participating or following up on this further? Okay, good. We will, as I said, we will be sending out a poll to everybody who had signed up on this. And once again, we have some people online and some who said they couldn't make it, they had other obligations, wanted to see it. But we'll be sending out something to try to solicit more information. The next steps, you know, are form a group, work on establishing it. So we'll be interested in two things in the survey. One, are you interested in being a member potentially going forward? And number two, are you interested in being more than a member? You know, and that's volunteering to help get some things up and going and off the ground originally. So we're going to try to form a group to establish the PBA. That group would need to formalize an agreement with TLC. Fairly simple. There's some examples out there, so I don't think that's a big step. Submit grants for equipment. As I said, once again, August 1st deadline. Yeah.
What kind of equipment are you talking?
Yeah, so if it's a bird trailer, a lot of times there's a lot of equipment in there, but it's no mechs, so your fire protective clothing, hard hats, gloves, hand tools, drip torches, backpack sprayers, leaf blowers, the list goes on, and it all adds up pretty quickly. We do have like a burn trailer Excel file that has links to all these places where you can kind of, you know, find specific equipment. But I would say you're probably looking at, which Tommy, you might have a better idea of kind of what a bird trailer might cost, but I mean, I would say anywhere from 15 to 20,000 for the trailer and fully stocked.
So that's what some of the grants are, but I don't think that's not a requirement for setting up a PB. That's one of the benefits, I think, is to be able to pull resources to pursue some grants in order to be able to put together a burn trailer and get everything in. But I think there's some interim steps that can be taken. One is, you know, inventory of the equipment owned by members. There's a lot of people here that have probably been burning. I mean, I have, Mike has more equipment than anybody in just an individual. I mean, he's got a whole fire truck there that he go up. But I mean, but finding out what people have, you know, and what you have to work on yours and what you'd be willing to loan to work on other people. So if you're volunteering to help, say, hey, I'm bringing my own equipment. I got my own safety equipment. I've got my own backpack, flappers, whatever you might be bringing, grip perches, etc. So learn that. Another thing is solicit donations of equipment. You know, there are different organizations periodically that are updating, getting new parachutes. Steve, you mentioned you just Friends of Hackmatack just got some from.
Yeah, we got personal equipment, personal protective equipment for 10 people. Included no map, the helmet, goggles, gloves, the whole rigmarole.
Yeah. Too bad we weren't around earlier. We could have got that. But
Well, I think maybe the friends can share that.
yes, but that's. I mean, we would look to share some of that. I talked to Lisa a little bit. You know, TLC has some equipment also, so I think there's opportunities to, you know, get going. You know, don't have it. But the ultimate goal would be, it'd be nice to be able to have equipment that you can just go out to each burn site. You know, pull up with the trailer and you're fully loaded and ready to go. Want to develop the operating agreements, and then the next step would be sign up members. And a goal, it's maybe aspirational, would be hopefully to be ready and do a few fall burns this year, you know, for that goal. I think at this point, just want to see questions. Yes.
Is there
critical mass in terms of membership to get something like this to work?
That's a good question. And I think it really just depends on the group. One thing or something that I'm asked a lot is, if these PBAs, they start out, they're doing burning and then they kind of fizzle out, why does that happen? And a lot of times it goes down to that leadership team. I think if you have a strong 5 to 10 people that are committed to keeping the PBA going, that, the membership fees and stuff like that don't really come into play. I think they're more just kind of supplemental funds to keep the PBA going, but I don't know if there's, a needed amount of members. Obviously, the more members you have, the more money coming in, the more equipment you can have, the more burning you can do. But I think I said like a minimum of 15. You're also going to be limited on how many burns you can do based off of what equipment you have. So if you have 30 people that want their property burned next year, it's probably not going to happen. So, you also have to kind of line up your expectations and make it realistic as far as how many burns you can get accomplished, and based off of what you have and your experience and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I do think also, I mean, we focus mostly on landowners, but I think there's another population out there in the county, and that's villages, park districts, cities that own property that want to do some burning. Bull Valley, you got that little spot right near south of the dog park. You got, some woods. I think PLC has helped them on some on that. But I mean, there's other organizations that may not be individuals also that something to think about with the operating agreements. How could they be a member or participate? They're not individual, but they've got a need. And if we think about what our goal is, it's really just to try to get more fire on the ground, to help everything in the county. Everything's interconnected, so more your neighbor burns, more that's going to help you, those populations. So, other questions?
Would we consider working with folks outside of McHenry County, like Boone or Lake, surrounding towns?
We could. So one of the things that was probably an early decision. I said, let's just kind of focus on McHenry County. Number one, McHenry County has some very active groups within it, whether it's the Defenders, DLC, and CCD, and some other organizations like that. When I went to the session in O'Fallon, they were talking about some of these that were bigger, and they said part of it is they're a little more sparsely populated down. But they also were talking about all of a sudden trying to have volunteers. It's a 2-hour drive to get over to in Lake County, to burn over on the thing, or Lake and Boone, trying to do that. So we just said we kind of focus on McHenry County first. I think those other counties, I think they would benefit from it. I would encourage them to at least go through the process and listen to Caleb speak on it. But I think we're just decided McHenry County was a good starting point.
Is it a consideration for a burning group to hire themselves out to help?
I'll let you talk. There is one, you said donations.
Yeah, it'd probably have to be the case where the PBA is carrying insurance and has like actual coordinators. I don't think the municipality would want a group to come in, but for them to still be kind of liable for the burn. With that being said, there's definitely an avenue there where these other agencies could receive assistance from a PBA. I know I help out mainly IDNR with burns, but a lot of times we have volunteers show up on burns. I know that the McHenry County Conservation District, you guys have some volunteers show up on burns. So I kind of see it as that the PBA would just be groups of people that are reliable. They have burn experience. They're doing things by the book. it might be an easier ask for an agency to say, hey, maybe we'll reach out to these guys to see if they can help us out on a burn because we know they have experience and knowledge to do that. I don't know if it would ever be a scenario where they would be leading the burn on a property like that. But when we're talking about membership levels and membership fees, a lot of the PBAs do have like an organizational membership level where that's like another agency that's just supporting the PBA financially. Maybe they'll help them out on some burns and vice versa.
I want to make sure I have it straight in my head. There is no requirement for a member of the association to have burn training. Is that correct?
So burn
It's a good idea, but there's no requirement.
most PBAs do have some type of burn training requirement. And it's kind of not, I wouldn't say a gray area, but they're kind of trying to determine what that looks like. In Missouri, which that's where we actually have pulled a lot of this PBA information has come from the Missouri Prescribed Fire Council. They probably have 20 or so PBAs over there. So we're kind of trying to model that. I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Well, it sounds like the association could determine that it required some level of training.
Yes, so.
But as they're set up now, that's not a requirement to put one together.
I wouldn't say it's a requirement, but most PBAs do require some level of training. And why I mentioned Missouri, their like certified burn manager is a much easier avenue than here in Illinois to become a certified burn manager. So we'd love for everyone in the PBA to be a certified burn manager, but that's not realistic. So that's why we mentioned that there should be a burn manager with PBA on the burns. So we're kind of trying to each PBA is like determining what that in this county, like we mentioned, TLC, they have their own burn training. So I could see that being a potential option, not a requirement that you have to attend that one, but that's an option. So yeah, PBAs are kind of trying to determine what that training looks like, or what those requirements look like. Right now for Illinois Valley, we do as a PBA do training burns, and like that's a required. If you don't have any burn experience, you have to come to like a training burn or a burn workshop, or if you want to go through the S130, S190 and get your certified burn manager, that's an option. Or using some of these other agencies with their burn training. But statewide, there isn't like a set training. Yeah,
It sounds like determining if that's going to be something members have to do should be on that list of how you organize the thing. It seemed to me like a big question.
absolutely.
Other questions? Yes.
The goal for fall 2026 burn season, it would be great. I would assume that would only be like shared equipment because August 1st grant dates.
Oh, yeah.
They'll get around that fast.
They won't let us know.
Okay.
So yeah, that's really gonna be more
Longer term.
shared. What do we have available or borrow?
They borrow.
Big break and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, and that DNR,
Kind of a potluck for.
that IDNR grant, I mentioned August 1st deadline. They review those applications in October. And then if you got approved for equipment, you wouldn't be able to purchase it until January of 2027. Also with those grants, they require a 5-year reporting where you have to report usage of that equipment for 5 years. After the 5 years is up, you can do whatever you want with the equipment. But there is some involvement there's involvement outside of just getting equipment with those grants.
So I look at the grants as kind of a icing on the cake, that we really try to do it, our own, figure out what people have, what possibly get donated. And if we can get something like that going, that would give us a stuff, so. Questions?
Request.
Yeah.
Could the slide deck be posted publicly or emailed out to people?
Yes, so we've got a link website there.
Very basic website set up at McHenryPBA.org. So I'll make sure that we post all the relevant materials there after this. It might not be immediate, so give me a day or so.
Yeah. Cool, thank you.
Yeah, so we're planning to post that. We're planning to send stuff out. We'll send out a link to everybody. We're gonna do the survey with everybody that, you know, express some interest, just to kind of gauge that. And we will be doing an ask of people who are interested, not only just being a member, but, you know, participating a little bit more and being involved in helping organize this and get this set up. So, yes.
Maybe you could ask the group, you've probably all done burns on our own property in this room. How many of us have gotten permit?
Which are.
You don't want to.
Well, so
Turn the camera off.
I'll just speak for myself. I mean,
What do you mean, per though?
I've gotten burn permits, EPA permits, you know,
Each on the
some
back of the
years,
state?
but not every year.
Oh.
You know, one year I got it back, you know, applied, sent it in. I got a mail back. You know, something in the mail like 3 months later, which was right before the thing saying, you know, you forgot to check this one box here. You know, and I'm going, well, by the time I check the box and mail it back in, the burner's done. So it's been hit or miss. But I do think it is something particularly from the PBA perspective. And as I was talking to Caleb, he said how it's really improved. They're much quicker now. But I think it's something that's going to be required to have on each burn we do, is to have a burn permit and also to have a burn plan. That's necessary from a liability. Maybe we'll get, so they just do it, just fill it out online and get for 2 or 3 years. Yeah. Yes.
We went to the TLC burn class and they did touch on permitting and stuff. And I remember the girl that taught it, she could because they do multiple areas, multiple locations.
Yep.
And they could apply
Right.
in one form, they could apply to all these areas at one time. You know, so I don't know
Yes.
if the PBA could do it as a group, you know, everybody who wants to burn this fall or this spring, you know, and sign up. And then your property will be put on that permit and it'll be like one application and done.
Do you do that? Do you see that, or is it?
You need separate maps and plans for each of the properties though. So we have 43 properties at the center burn permit, and we have separate maps and plans for all 43.
Okay.
Yeah, and DNR does that. They get
Yeah.
Permits for 5 years for the site. So they have a 5-year long permit. They can do multiple sites. I don't know. I would think they would maybe be flexible and allow PBAs to do that, but I know like soil and water conservation districts, they tried to do that and they wanted them to submit separately each site. So they might do that for certain like agencies. I'm not sure.
At the district, we have 49 different prescription burn plans and we have one per.
Okay.
And it has all your sites listed on it.
Yes.
What percent of the burns are done in the spring versus fall?
I'm gonna burn to somebody else.
It
Here at the district this last year, we had 5 burns that we did last fall, November and October, and a little bit into December. Did about 329 acres or something like that last fall. And then this spring, we did 48 burns and burned over almost 3,000 acres.
That's the answer.
Yeah, I would say, yeah. And I would say that's pretty reflective for most people. A lot of people burn in the spring.
So I thought,
Yeah.
we hunt in the fall.
Yep. Or if you have, if you're worried about removing that winter cover, that's a big thing too. That being said, you get completely different results if you burn in the fall versus spring. And what's starting to gain popularity now is even growing season birds. So looking at that August, September, early October window, really good for controlling woody vegetation.
Any other questions? Well, thank you very much for everybody for coming, and please do take a couple minutes. It's going to be a short 5, 6 questions or something on the survey. If you would just fill that out and give us your feedback on that. And we'll keep everybody in touch with not only what we talked about today, but as we continue to progress forward. So
Thanks for putting it together.
Yeah, it's nice to see all my friends here.
It is.